Welcome back to the channel, guys. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is shaping up to be one of the greatest Star Wars games ever made. It runs smooth, the gameplay is fun and satisfying, the combat has some surprising depth to it, and it's that last point we're going to focus on. Today we're looking at one of my favorite parts of video games in general, boss fights. There are over 30 boss battles in LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, and in today's video, we're ranking them all, from the worst of the bunch all the way to the very best. This is going to be a long one, guys. You might want to grab a snack or a drink for it. And as you settle in, if you're new around here, consider subscribing and getting notified. We have a lot of LEGO Star Wars content lined up. We're going to be ranking these fights on several factors: difficulty, fun, originality, and overall vibe. This is all my opinion too, by the way. If I rank a certain fight lower than you would, that's cool. I would love to hear where you would rank it in the comments. Spoiler alert for the Skywalker Saga if you have not yet played through it, obviously. But without further ado, let's get into these rankings. Coming in at number 33, we have 33 of these things to go over, guys. We've got the Kijimi Crooks. Now, why this is considered a boss battle, I really have no idea. All you're fighting are a couple of random thugs. They're no stronger than the regular enemies that you fight on every other map. It's hardly a boss battle, and for that reason, it comes in last, but they did have the little title card that announced them, so I suppose it counts as a boss. Up next at number 32, we have Captain Phasma from Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This fight is hardly a fight. It's more about you running around the map and setting up different traps for Captain Phasma, and she just walks directly into them, causing her damage. And after she walks into 2 or 3 traps, the fight is over and you've captured her. Again, it's hardly a fight. I can barely consider it a boss battle, but she did get that title screen, so I suppose it counts. Number 31, we have Emperor Palpatine from Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This one is a bit unfortunate because the Palpatine fights in LEGO Star Wars are usually pretty good. This one is not. It's simply a series of QuickTime events. All you're doing is mashing the basic attack buttons until you get close enough to Palpatine to finish him off. 3 more QuickTime events later, and the fight is over. It's hardly a fight, it's more of a cinematic, and for that reason it comes in at number 31, but it does look nice. I like the vibe of Exegol. At number 30, we have Kylo Ren from Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This is the first one on the list that actually feels like a proper boss fight. Kylo Ren has several health bars that you have to get through, but what makes this fight a little bit different is that you're not actually attacking Kylo, you're more letting him tire out. Once again, it's a series of QuickTime events where you're playing as Luke Skywalker, just dodging all of Kylo's attacks. There are some funny moments when Luke taunts Kylo in between the phases, and for that reason it gets some bonus points. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the QuickTime events, so most of the boss battles that have those will find their way a little bit lower on my list. But this one is pretty good, and from this point on, we're getting into the proper boss fights. Number 29 is Luke Skywalker from Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Yeah, Luke Skywalker himself is a boss battle. You have to take him out with Rey. He's just got a single health bar. He's more of a mini-boss than anything. I just thought it was really cool that we actually get to fight Luke Skywalker in this moment. There's no lightsabers involved, just your stabs. It's a short fight, but it is actually really fun. Up next, similar to Luke, we have another mini-boss. At number 28 is FN 2199. Also known as Traitor. Just like Luke, this guy has a single health bar. He's a really easy fight, and you get the added bonus of being able to play as both Han and Chewie on top of playing as Finn in this fight. So you have a lot of options to take him out. He's really not difficult, but I thought the inclusion of him as a mini-boss was cool. Plus, it's the first time Finn gets to use a lightsaber, and that is awesome. At number 27, we have our first Darth Vader fight. This one is in the Darkside Cave on Dagobah. It's another mini-boss, it's a really short fight, but I like this one a lot because it's not just Vader. Vader brings along a little Mirage droid for R2 to fight while Luke clashes sabers with his dad. It's just cool being able to swap between Jedi and droid and fighting the two of them. The cutscene at the end also got a legit chuckle out of me. I like that scene. Next up at number 26, we have the assassin, Zam Wesell. This is the first boss battle on this list that actually doesn't involve a boots-on-the-ground character fighting. This is a speeder-to-speeder fight, and for that reason it's a little bit higher on the list than everything else, just for sheer originality. It's kind of fun chasing her through Coruscant, shooting out the power coupling so you don't take damage. It's a little bit slow-paced, and it's not very difficult at all, but the fact that it's more original than everything else on the list so far puts it in this position. At number 25, we have the Dianoga, the first boss fight in A New Hope. This one really caught me by surprise. I did not expect to fight the Dianoga as a full-on boss. It's pretty fun. It kind of reminds me of Queen Goma from Ocarina of Time with the eye and everything. You have the freedom to play as Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie in this situation, so you have a lot of options. The fight itself is not difficult, but the environment that you're in is really cramped, so moving around can be a little hard. I found myself taking a lot of damage from the tentacles for that reason, so if you're trying to avoid damage, this one actually might be a bit of a challenge for you. After the Dianoga, we have one that really cracked me up. At number 24, we have Jabba the freaking Hutt. This guy is actually a boss. You have to fight him as Leia, and what's interesting about this fight is that as Leia, you're tethered to Jabba, so you can't really move too far away from him. This affects you in between phases because you're not only fighting Jabba, you're also fighting Salacious Crumb. So sometimes you have to switch over to R2 and hit Crumb that way since you just can't reach him as Leia. This fight gets a lot of points for originality in my book. It's not challenging and it's kind of silly, but the originality factor definitely bumps it up for me. At number 23, we have the second Captain Phasma fight from Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This one is several steps up from her first fight in The Force Awakens. I like this fight a lot. It's not your standard lightsaber versus lightsaber clash or just your standard blaster shootout. You actually have to be kind of creative with how you take Phasma out. There's always a conveyor belt above her head that can drop either TIE fighters or AT-STs to cause damage, or you can suck her into a turbine that's next to her platform. There are multiple ways to do damage, and it's really creative, so for that reason, it's in spot number 23. Next up, number 22 is another boss in fancy armor. We have the first Jango fight from Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Fans love this fight in the movie, and the one in the game does not disappoint either. The vibe is great, Kamino is an awesome setting for the fight. As Obi-Wan, you're going up against both Jango and Slave 1. Technically, it's Boba piloting Slave 1, so you have to avoid the shots from the ship, but taking out Jango is the main objective. It's a short fight. Once again, it's kind of a mini-boss more than anything, but it's awesome. Now, every good game has to have a secret boss, and this next one at number 21 is just that. I don't expect everybody to have encountered this in their playthrough just yet, but this is the Crate Dragon. Tracking down and taking out the Crate Dragon is a mission objective that's given to you by Yaddle. Once you complete it, you unlock Yaddle as a character, but this boss is, for all intents and purposes, a true boss. The health bar at least makes him feel that way. It's not difficult, but it takes a long time because there is a lot of health to get through. Couple the fact that you can't damage it with blasters, you can really only do damage with lightsabers and other characters like the Rancor. This fight would find itself a little bit higher on my list if it weren't for the fact that it's a little bit buggy, and it's also just not difficult at all. The Crate Dragon has 2 or 3 attacks, they're easy to avoid, and he got stuck on the hill, as you can see. That was a bit of a pain to get him unstuck, so for that reason, he's at number 21. Speaking of the Rancor though, he finds himself in spot number 20. This fight is awesome. You get to play as Luke Skywalker and the Gamorrean guard that falls into the Rancor pit with you, and it's just fun swapping between the two and slicing up the Rancor's legs or throwing debris at it with Luke. It's actually a really good fight, and one of the more unique ones, since you're fighting a monster instead of a person. The Rancor has only 1 health bar, but similar to the Crate Dragon, it takes a little bit to get through. It's definitely one of the more unique battles in LEGO Star Wars, and it's a classic fight from the movies too. I like this fight a lot. It gets number 20 from me. At number 19, we're getting into the really good stuff, and from this point onward, there really isn't a bad fight necessarily, in my opinion. Number 19 is Darth Vader from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. It's a little weird seeing Vader so low on the list, and this fight is actually pretty short, not quite as short as his encounter in the Darkside Cave. This Darth Vader has more health bars than that one, but this one gets a lot of points from me for reimagining the events in Episode 6. You have the scene where Luke jumps on the platform with Darth Vader throwing the lightsaber to knock him down, and you actually get a full view of the Emperor's throne room in this fight. Also, as the second to last boss battle in the original trilogy stories, this one has a little bit of a challenge to it. It's not that hard, but the QuickTime events are a lot faster than the other ones that came before, and you really do have to focus on the button prompts that it gives you. If you don't hit it fast enough, you will actually lose those QuickTime events, which doesn't seem to happen too much in this game, so for that, I actually give it points for a bit of a challenge. Number 18 belongs to Kylo Ren from Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This fight is really good. I really don't have many bad things to say about it. I will say, the first time I did this fight, my lightsaber actually glitched out when I was playing as Rey. It was just hovering in midair and I was forced to punch Kylo in the face instead of hitting him with the lightsaber, so that was interesting. Just like in the movie, it's a two-parter. You take him on first with Finn and then with Rey after that, with waves of stormtroopers in between. All in all, it's a very good fight, and it's pretty much a standard for the boss battles in LEGO Star Wars. Plus, at the end of it, it's followed by a pretty funny cutscene. Next up, number 17 is our first prequel lightsaber boss, which should tell you just how good the prequel bosses actually are. This is General Grievous, and he is leaps and bounds above both the first Jango fight and Zam Wesell. You take on Grievous with obviously Obi-Wan Kenobi, but Commander Cody also gets in on the action, which is a really cool dynamic. Since Grievous does Grievous things and runs away a lot, Cody has to help Obi-Wan catch up to him, which adds some depth to the combat. Every phase ends with Obi-Wan chopping off one of Grievous's limbs until he's only got one left in the final phase. You'll have to deal with the reinforcements he calls in between phases, especially the Magna Guards, which do hit pretty hard. But if worst comes to worst, you can always shoot them in the face with Commander Cody and save Obi-Wan for the actual Grievous encounters. Guys, we are halfway through these rankings. I really appreciate you sticking with me. If you're liking the video so far, give it a thumbs up to let me know. And drop a comment below letting me know what your favorite boss fight is in LEGO Star Wars. At number 16, we are keeping up with the trend of prequel boss battles. We have Count Dooku from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, when I did my first playthrough of LEGO Star Wars, I started on Episode 1, so when I got to this point in the game, the saber combat had more or less clicked for me, so I found this fight really easy. Just like in the movies, you're playing as Obi-Wan and Anakin, freely able to switch back and forth. Between the phases, you have to take out waves of super battle droids, but the fight ultimately ends when you chop off Count Dooku's head. This fight actually loses some points from me because of the vibe. I'm not a huge fan of the environment, although it is nice being able to use the Force to pick up and throw objects at Dooku. The color scheme and just the overall map, I'm not a huge fan of. It's very bland, and like I said, vibe is a factor that we're taking into account with these ratings, so for a lack of vibe, it gets number 16. Coming up next, this one might surprise a lot of you guys. Number 15 is the Fish from Episode 1. I know, weird, right? The OPC Killer and the Kolo Clawfish are actually awesome boss battles. The reason I like these fights so much is because they remind me hard of the old school Jurassic Park arcade game, where you're sitting in the seat with the guns and you're shooting the dinosaurs as they chase you. Man, I loved those games growing up, and I got some serious JP vibes from this fight. It's also one of the few boss battles where you're piloting a vehicle instead of having your boots on the ground, so it gets originality points, it gets vibe points, fun points. This fight's great. I love it. Next up, Jango Fett is back at number 14. This time, he's piloting his ship, Slave 1. This is another ship-to-ship battle between Obi-Wan and Jango, and this fight is great. It's really the only dogfight boss battle in LEGO Star Wars, and for that reason, it's pretty high up on the list. Jango's got several health bars that are protected by a shield that you have to get through first. He launches missiles at you, seismic charges at you, you fly in and out of asteroids. It's actually really cool. He also gets progressively faster as you do more damage to him, which is weird because most of the bosses in LEGO Star Wars don't behave that way. The difficulty stays pretty consistent all throughout, but this one actually feels like it gets harder over time, and that's awesome. Edging out just over his dad at number 13, we have Boba Fett from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. This fight is really cool. I kind of see it as a what-if scenario. What if Luke and Boba got to face off for a little bit before Boba got taken out like a bit of a chump? Luke effortlessly mows down Jabba's guards, but when he gets to Boba, it should have been a bit more of a challenge, so I like this fight for that what-if reason. But on top of that, you also get to play as Lando and Chewbacca, so when Boba flies too far out of range for Luke, you can just shoot him out of the sky, and it's really satisfying. After Boba, Lollipop Man is back. Count Dooku comes in at number 12. This time it's his Episode 2 Attack of the Clones fight. And the reason this one beats out the Episode 3 fight for me is simply because Yoda comes in halfway through and takes over. In the Episode 3 fight, you've just got Obi-Wan and Anakin, but in Episode 2, Yoda fights side by side with Anakin after Obi-Wan gets knocked out. And I can't be the only one who finds the idea of Yoda and Anakin kicking ass side by side incredibly badass. Maybe it's just because of that Clone Wars episode in Season 6 where they fight that phantom force back of Sidious. That was awesome too, but I digress. Count Dooku from Episode 2 is in number 12. Number 11 is more of an honorary mention than anything, but it does conveniently transition into number 10, so we're going to include it at number 11 here for that reason. This is the three-way boss battle between the Nexu, the Reek, and the Acklay in the Geonosis arena. No other boss battle in LEGO Star Wars has three separate bosses all in the same fight at once. This is pure chaos. You can actually mind trick the Nexu to do battle for you, which is an interesting dynamic in this one, but a lot of the time you're just going to be playing as Obi-Wan or Anakin, picking up spears and bones and taking out the enemies that way. It's not hard, but this one gets a lot of points for originality, simply for having three different bosses all in the same fight. That's really interesting. But it does not even hold a candle to number 10. We are now in the top 10 boss battles of LEGO Star Wars, guys. Number 10 belongs to Jango Fett, coming in for the third time on this list. This is the fight between him and Mace Windu in the Geonosis arena. So, several things. This is the one and only boss fight where you get to play as Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, and Ki-Adi-Mundi in the story mode. That alone gives it a lot of points, but this fight itself is also really good. Having to track Jango around the arena with all the distractions going on around you, you can actually lose sight of him pretty easily if it weren't for the objective marker. He launches rockets at you, he launches net traps at you that can actually stun you and leave you vulnerable to get hit by a rocket. The vibe is great with everything happening around you, the character selection is awesome, and the boss itself is fun. Number 9. This might upset a couple of people who are a fan of this fight, but this is Anakin Skywalker from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, this fight is not bad at all. The only reason it's at number 9 is because numbers 1 through 8, in my opinion, are just better overall. This is an extremely cinematic fight, though. It follows the events that happen in Episode 3 pretty much to a T. Obviously, you're playing as Obi-Wan, but for this mission, you do get to switch between R2 and 3PO as well. And I gotta say, seeing 3PO swinging on Anakin is hilarious. It's a really cinematic fight, though. The cinematic ones get a lot of points in my book. This one's great. I really have no bad things to say about it. Moving on to number 8. Number 8 on our list is the best boss battle in Episode 8. This is the Praetorian Guards from The Last Jedi. This fight is awesome. The atmosphere is intense with all the red coloration that is more or less the theme of The Last Jedi. The fact you get to play as Rey and Kylo Ren is an awesome dynamic. You've got the other Praetorians circling around you while you're taking on the one that you're fighting. There's just a lot going on, and it's really cool. In terms of vibe, this fight is off the charts. The Praetorians themselves also seem really bulky. They all share a single health bar, and the individual Praetorians are represented by the different shield icons underneath that health bar, but the fact they all share one kinda makes it seem like the fight drags on a little bit. Not in a bad way either. Coming in at lucky number 7 is the Duel of the Fates itself, Darth Maul. Like I said, I started my playthrough on Episode 1, so when I got to the Darth Maul boss fight, I was kind of thrown into the ringer. It was just like, here you go, you're having a lightsaber duel now. So naturally, the first attempt is not going to be very pretty. All in all though, this fight is great. It really introduces you to how the boss battles in LEGO Star Wars work. Since they're not just battles exclusively, they're also full-on missions in and of themselves. The Darth Maul boss fight was kind of my first experience with that, so it holds a bit of a special place on this list. Judging by the trophies on the PlayStation Network, it seems like most other players started on Episode 1 as well, so I can only imagine that a lot of others feel the same way. The Darth Maul fight is great, but it gets beaten ever so slightly by number 6, the Sovereign Protectors and the Knights of Ren. Say what? The Knights of Ren are actually doing something? No way. For every reason that I like the Praetorian Guards fight, I also like this one, except this one has more to offer. Like I said earlier on in the video, Exegol is a vibe, so the fact that this is basically the Praetorian Guards fight copied over to Episode 9 on a better looking planet, this beats it, easily. Plus, these voice lines from Palpatine make it so much better.
I wanted them to call you Kira. Sounds so much cooler.
The idea of the Sovereign Protectors and the Knights of Ren is really cool. I always loved the idea of Palpatine having these elite guards to protect him, and we actually get to see what they can do in Episode 9, so that's cool. We have made it to number 5, guys. We have broken into the top 5. This one is the best fight in all of the sequel trilogy missions. This is Kylo Ren from Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. This fight is way superior to the one from The Force Awakens, if for no other reason than we actually get an extra cutscene in this fight fight that didn't even exist in the movie. This is the creativity points that I was talking about in the beginning. If there are these kinds of cutscenes that more or less add to the fight that didn't exist before, that is a huge bonus in my book, and this cutscene's pretty cool. It just shows Rey and Kylo falling down this shaft, with Rey using the lightsaber to slow her descent while catching BB-8. It's just nice. In the final phase of the fight where you're chasing Kylo down the wreckage of the Death Star, you have to avoid those giant tidal waves that are crashing down on you, so there's some environmental hazards. BB-8 can set traps for Kylo, which adds a bit of creativity to it. This fight, all in all, fantastic. A+. We are at number 4, guys, and from this point onward, this is just the best of the best. I think any one of these could easily have the number 1 slot depending on who is making this rankings list. For me though, number 4 belongs to Darth Vader in Cloud City from Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. In terms of the movies, this is one of the most iconic clashes of lightsabers in all 9 saga films. Luke versus Darth Vader on Cloud City is a classic, and LEGO Star Wars does this justice. This fight gets a lot of bonus points from me simply for having R2 as a teammate. Being able to swap to R2 and attack Vader is pretty interesting. The heavy attack is really cheesy, it will stun him over and over and over again, so R2 is kind of a cheat code against Vader. But Luke also gets to shine in this fight because, unlike in the movies, LEGO Star Wars can take some creative liberties and throw in a lot more flips and fancy stunts. It really makes it seem like Luke is actually progressing as a true Jedi learner. The fight is really cinematic, it's got multiple phases, you have to kind of play a game of hide and seek with Darth Vader at one point. It's really creative, I like it. We're in the top 3, guys. Number 3 is Emperor Palpatine himself from Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, it's not so much Palpatine himself that makes this fight cool, it's sort of everything that happens around it. In the cutscene before the fight, you actually see Darth Vader deflecting Palpatine's Force lightning to protect Luke, and that's something we didn't really see in the movies. The fact that you get Luke and Darth Vader teaming up side by side to fight the Emperor, that is so badass! Then in between phases, you've got the Royal Red Guards popping in to harass Luke and Vader to give Palpatine a break, which goes back to what I was saying about the Sovereign Protectors and just seeing Palpatine's elite guards in action. We didn't get to see the Royal Red Guards do anything in the original trilogy, so this is cool. Like, LEGO games, for the most part, are really lighthearted and sort of silly, but this is one of those rare moments where it's actually badass, so my hat's off to this one. Great job. Guys, we've got 2 left on the list. I greatly appreciate everyone who has stuck with it so far. We are 21 minutes in. This is crazy. For number 2, this one is a little interesting. We've got BB-9E. I mean, BB Boss. BB Boss! What kind of a name is that? This is hardly a boss fight, guys. All you gotta do is shoot those ventilation shafts around BB-9E's turret, and when you take out all 4, he's done. This gets number 2 simply for the name alone. This is a meme. Feel free to grill me in the comments for it. I don't care. BB Boss is a boss. He would be number 1 if it weren't for the actual best boss fight in all of LEGO Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. We have Emperor Palpatine as number 1 from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. The Senate Showdown is an incredible mission. You play as Master Yoda and Captain Typho, which is what gives this mission and this boss fight so many creativity points in my book. Yoda vs. Palpatine in the movies, obviously a one-on-one. Captain Typho was nowhere to be found, so that added layer of having a blaster character fight side by side with Yoda is really cool. Palpatine himself has a couple of different phases throughout the fight, which makes it feel like an actual boss. Not to mention, the QuickTime events are actually a lot more difficult this time around. You have to be quick, and you really have to lay into that button mash when it prompts you to, otherwise you'll lose. Palpatine himself also has a lot more direct involvement with this one. What do I mean by that? Well, in Episode 9, you're just doing a series of QuickTime events. In Episode 6, yeah, you are fighting Palpatine directly, but over half the time is spent fighting his guards. In this one, you are fighting Palpatine. Like, actually crossing sabers and doing damage to him that way. It's really the only Palpatine fight where that happens. For all of those reasons combined, Emperor Palpatine comes out on top as the number 1 best boss in LEGO Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a blast making it. If your personal rankings look different than mine, I'm actually really curious to see it. Drop it in a comment below and let me know what you think the best boss fights are. With that, guys, that's it from me. If you want to see more LEGO Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga videos, consider subscribing and getting notified. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, a thumbs down if you didn't, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!